Hi everyone, my name is Ricardo. I'm a director of product design at Dropbox, and today I'd like to hold some space to talk about a critical chasm that Megan opened up for us, and it exists in our industry. It impacts everything that we do, everything that we build, and everyone that we serve. And that is this. Throughout my career, I've encountered this very curious maxim that we often seem to take at face value. Quality is often seen as an as an UX-driven measure, and performance is often seen as an engineering-driven objective. This division creates artificial boundaries that limit what we can achieve together. I, of course, like Megan, fundamentally disagree with the separation. Quality and performance matter equally to all disciplines. When we treat them as separate concerns, we end up with beautiful products that frustrates our users with slow load times, or we end up with lightning fast applications that confuse and alienate the people that we are here to serve. I'm proud to have helped bridge this gap throughout my career, and today I'd like to share a couple of stories on paths that I have found for success. Now, during my time at Shopify, my team and I completely rebuilt and reimagined the point-of-sale app specifically for brick-and-mortar merchants. This wasn't just a new app. It brought alongside it a brand new design system, one that would elevate the purpose of who we were designing for. The existing design system, called Polaris for admin, or Polaris, was optimized for different contexts and audiences than we were designing for. Online merchants typically sit at their desk. They review and monitor their online store's health in a relatively stable physical environment. A brick-and-mortar merchant, however, operates in a completely different reality. They exist in a constant state of movement with perpetually shifting environment. The device is right in front of them, often at arm's length away. The customer is right in front of them. Sometimes they might be frustrated. There's merchandise all around them. The lights are glaring, the sounds are blaring. We needed to design for confidence, for speed, and for clarity in high-pressure situations. Now, the result was not just a redesigned experience, but a data-informed, resilient, and flexible design system alongside it. We reimagined every component, buttons that would be easily tappable in high-pressure situations, dialogues that communicated clearly at a glance, headers that prioritized the most critical information, empty states that would guide users towards the next best action, navigation that reduced cognitive load, and you get the gist. So much more. Now here's the kicker. Everything that I just showed you means absolutely nothing without the other half of the equation, performance. When we tested our alpha experience with merchants, the time to checkout often exceeded a minute. And that was a minute of load times, of things freezing up a little bit. Now, for a task that any one human being has to repeat hundreds of times a day, this is simply not acceptable. This is where the chasm becomes most apparent and most damaging. A product or a design system can work and can be as beautiful as ever. But if it doesn't work when we need it to work, if it freezes, if it crashes during a critical customer interaction, the question that Megan and I are both posing to this room is, does all the effort that we invested in its beauty actually matter? It doesn't. Aesthetics without performance isn't design. It's simply decoration. A design system's success extends far beyond purpose, documentation, and breadth. A truly purposeful design solution should focus equally on ensuring successful execution in real-world conditions. And as designers, we're incredibly well equipped with it, because craft and quality extend before the pixel is even drawn, doesn't it? Because we use rigor to define problems. We use intuition to frame approaches. And of course, we use advocacy for human-centered solutions. Craft and quality, however, should continue beyond the pixel by holding this measurable way to test whether or not we're able to map a customer's intent to our outcome, what we are designing for. Now, the point of sale app proved to be an ideal project to close this chasm between performance and quality. Because our merchants, as now you know, required something fast, reliable, and simple. For some context, we implemented this app using React Native. Back then, it was a brand new technology for Shopify. And it brought unique challenges. Number one was a lack of precedent for how we should measure performance with this technology. Limited knowledge across UX team members for assessing performance metrics, and most critically, an absence of shared language connecting multiple disciplines together. So I rallied the teams around a simple but meaningful hypothesis centered on a critical outcome, that a fast and performant experience would optimize a merchant's repetitive day-to-day activities, directly impacting not just their bottom line, but of course, customer satisfaction as well. Before activating this hypothesis, I needed to elevate my own understanding of performance to arrive at a place where I could hold strong opinions weakly held. I needed to quantify this perception of performance. When we say fast, what does that mean? Where does it come from? After studying various quality measures, I focused on the load lifecycle as our North Star metric. Now, let's briefly understand the load lifecycle, which is the time that it takes for any application, mobile or not, to become fully functional. The key metrics are time to first byte. This is when the loading begins. Think of this as the moment when you turn the key in your car's ignition. If you still have a key in your car, that is. Seems to be rare nowadays. First contentful paint is when visual elements appear. It's like seeing your car's dashboard light up, a sign that systems are activating, things are working, even if you cannot drive yet. First meaningful paint is when the primary content on the page becomes visible. At this point, users can see and read the content, but cannot yet act on it. It's like having your car running, but still in park. Everything works, but you're not yet going anywhere. Time to interactive marks the moment when content, UI, and tap events are ready, usable, and engageable by the user. This is the most critical performance metric for both UX and engineering. It is that definitive moment when a user can fully engage with the product. It's when your car shifts into drive and responds to the accelerator. The journey can finally begin. Now, developing a firm grasp on these metrics allowed us to ensure that our merchants' perceived sense of speed never crossed the threshold where we became a burden instead of a relief. In retail, where every second of delay can mean a lost sale or a frustrated customer, this distinction matters profoundly. Now, you might be feeling excited about measuring your own experiences, but of course it doesn't end with simply understanding the metrics. This is where any design team or design leader faces both a challenge but also an opportunity. How do we operationalize these insights effectively across teams? I believe that shared language sits at the core of establishing and influencing a team's culture, direction, and knowledge. Without it, we remain divided by disciplinary boundaries, these artificial lines that we create, speaking past each other rather than collaborating. So that is exactly what I did. I created a set of performance principles to close this chasm. I assigned performance metrics to each of these principles, allowing us not only to establish connections across disciplines, but also to create clear goalposts for product success. Don't make me wait measured the speed at which the app will become ready upon loading. When a merchant is processing a line of customers, even a 500 millisecond delay feels like an eternity. Smooth like butter, measured frames per second, ensuring that we maintain fluid animations throughout the entire experience. We established that dropping anywhere below 60 frames per second on a mobile device created this subconscious sense of friction that degraded the overall user experience. Make it snappy, track the overall responsiveness of the product. And helping us really identify these cases where a page appeared interactive, but in fact wasn't. A particularly frustrating experience for anyone, not even just a customer. Now, these principles became sticky. They transformed into everyday language in conversations between design and engineering. They bridged the gap because they were simple enough for everyone to understand and adopt, yet specific enough to be measured and improved upon. Grounded in these performance principles, I collaborated closely with my engineering peers to create performance thresholds for every critical user journey. We established that a lightning-fast application would be 100 milliseconds versus something dead slow. We created a Fibonacci sequence of it was 7 seconds, and of course, that was a failure point at that moment. We put all that into a dashboard, and this dashboard here showcases our efforts in setting these performance thresholds, enabling us to monitor key screens and establish KPIs. A score of 1 was perfect, but it was also rarely achieved because we were competing with our customers' Wi-Fi connections. So something in the range of 0.8, 0.9, 0.7 was okay. But as you can see, there's a couple of 0.5s in there. That was signal for us to go deep on. This allowed us, once again, to treat performance at the same level as weekly active users, at the same level as number of completed checkouts, effectively bridging this gap between the imagination of a smooth user experience and the reality of an app that was as empowering as it was performant. We were able to reduce checkout time by more than half by the time that we released the general availability of this app, empowering our merchants to complete sales with confidence, with ease, and with speed. Now, attention remains. You might be feeling it. What if your team does not have the means to close the chasm through quantitative standards like I just shared? What if this method is competing with other important business metrics? How else can you bridge the gap between craft quality and performance? Well, just because you might not be able to measure quality yet doesn't mean you can't get a head start on it. At Dropbox, while we measure performance similarly to the Shopify example that I shared, we also apply holistic thinking in quality of craft. It starts from the very first pixel that we draw, and it evolves into the general availability of any feature. These quality indicators that we use at Dropbox, we call them product principles. These principles help set a standard for what excellence should look like, what we should strive for as designers, product leaders, and engineering members as well. They give us a shared language to evaluate and prioritize work, and they guide all Dropbox employees on how to achieve those excellent results. So let's dive into some of them. The first principle is give it focus. In a world where attention is our users' most valuable resource, quality really means creating an experience where we add only what serves our users' needs and remove anything that does not. We want to solve fewer problems better so people can actually get things done. And here's a really great example. Mana on the team found herself untangling an unfocused experience that we call our upload drawer. On the left, you'll see the old experience. It confused users with unclear upload destinations, irrelevant CTAs, and an overwhelming experience. Mana leveled up the quality of this design by giving this experience focus. She leaned in with clarity around the final destination of the files within a folder. Take a look at the right-hand side. She decluttered the UI and focused on only showing the CTAs that matter most to our customers at that moment in time. This redesign demonstrates how Mana restored experiences by giving something focus, prioritizing a user's immediate task over a business objective. Next up is make it all just work. We don't want customers to need an instruction manual. None of us do. So if any customer has to spend time figuring something out, well, that's a failure moment. We want to make it better. This screen, designed by Daisy, shows how effective copy and layout dramatically can impact how customers understand the product. Small interactions build trust over time, like Megan said. Now, notice how on the left we see before continuing, that headline. It feels alarming, doesn't it? It feels blocking. It doesn't clarify why you're being asked to join this team. Compare that on the right-hand side, ready to join the team. The person's name and team domain are clear. The button's design makes the expected action obvious of what is going to happen when I click on that button. I'm going to join this team. There's no better path to quality than by making something magical. Now, our goal is to spark smiles along the way, and we deliberately seek these opportunities to make an experience joyful. Magic for us happens when we celebrate a completed task. Maybe confetti might come, but magic also happens when we automate the next one. It is also not just about visual flourish, making something magical. It's about the satisfaction delivered by technology that truly gets you. When we combine utility with fun, we hope and strive to make Dropbox magical. Now, some months ago, Jonathan and Azim on the team shipped updates to what we call our action bar that not only enhanced the user experience, but drove measurable improvements and engagement to this section of the web experience. It is these small, often overlooked details that can set your product apart from competitors. The accumulation of thoughtful touches that throughout time shapes the overall experience in a way that users might feel but may not explicitly articulate just why they like coming back to your experience. Finally, push it to premium. We, like all of you, want to prioritize quality in everything that we do, but we don't build castles when tents will do just fine. Here, KT shows us how she followed this principle by building with conviction and staying scrappy, fighting for adoption, and continuously iterating. We push to premium by getting products into people's hands and then learning from them on how to make them excellent. Now, whether you approach quality through quantitative or qualitative measures, team needs an actionable framework to apply these principles, performance standards, and quality metrics effectively. A successful way to close this chasm is to tie directly to the problem. True quality begins with problem definition. At Dropbox, I noticed that sometimes during design critiques, we tended to focus primarily on the visual elements. And of course, while enhancing visual design skills are essential, true craft begins with understanding the problem. And I wasn't seeing enough consistency there. Designers face additional challenges, often receiving predetermined solutions or feature requests from cross-functional partners. I observed that problems sometimes lack clear outcomes, alignment with business objectives, or benchmarks for performance. This put thoughtful solutions for our customers at risk. With this knowledge, we tied craft, quality, and performance to what matters most, our customers. We accomplished this through a simple but powerful artifact that we call problem framing cards to make these principles actionable. I created this information sheet of sorts that ensures that the designers are focusing on key elements when seeking feedback, presenting to leadership, and defining success with cross-functional partners. This helped transition teams from free flow to structured thinking while creating bridges between disciplines, functions, teams, and customers. These cards are reviewed in critiques, in leadership design reviews, and quarterly retros. They become an invaluable artifact when interacting with adjacent disciplines as well. They include essential components like a performance scorecard, product quality scorecard, customer satisfaction metrics to effectively close this chasm. Now, this single template has fostered a shared language across our disciplines, and I highly recommend that you try something similar with your teams. As a side benefit, beyond closing the chasm between quality and performance, this artifact improves satisfaction scores across our UX team in areas such as initiative, strategy, and productivity. Now, to close, I'd like to share some North Stars to keep in mind. The path forward to close the chasm is through intentional simplicity, not unnecessary complexity. This distinction is crucial. When I introduced problem framing cards at Dropbox, the goal wasn't to add process for the sake of it, but rather to create the minimum viable structure that we needed as a team to establish shared language. The right lightweight tools, those that enable and create transparency, create bridges, can transform how teams work together without slowing them down. And for those principles and artifacts that all of you create, remember that they need to be opinionated enough to guide the conversation, but flexible enough to allow shared meaning to grow organically within your unique context. At the end of the day, craft, quality, and performance will look different in the products that all of us are building. So define your meaning of quality out of the behavior that you're designing for. Let that be your guiding metric. Do you need a fast experience above anything else, like my story at Shopify? Or do you need to breathe holistic understanding of quality throughout your product, as we've done at Dropbox? Both paths work, yet are unique to each product and its lifecycle. The final North Star that I'll leave you with to close this chasm is the act of observation. To craft quality and build performance into your products, you must first observe. Is there knowledge lacking in your company? Are there opportunities already being tackled that you can double down on? Are there partnerships you can forge with other cross-functional partners? Is there a lack of shared meaning afflicting your teams? Maybe we start there. This is how you begin to close this chasm. We have an opportunity to use the superpowers that we hold as makers to observe our way into creating new pathways for our teams to approach quality, not as a separate concern from performance and craft, but as its inseparable partner. Thanks so much, everyone.